Olá, empezamos ahora la última mesa entre el altruismo y el trabajo para gestar para otros. Es un gran placer estar aquí en este seminario. Estoy segura de que, aunque estemos cansadas, estamos muy contentas también y satisfechas. Gracias, Consuelo, Ariadna, Eva, Pablo y a todo el grupo organizador. La gestación por sustitución es un tema complejo y en estos 3 días de debate han surgido muchos puntos importantes. Me llama la atención que el término trabajo reproductivo haya aparecido poco. Quizás se deba a la dificultad de pensar en el embarazo fuera de una perspectiva romántica, estrechamente vinculada a la maternidad. Hay muchas situaciones en las que la mujer que da a luz no se convierte en la madre del niño, pero parece que la maternidad subrogada es la única. Pienso en la adopción, en casos de violación, otros casos también. Hay muchas cuestiones morales en torno a esta práctica y ayer vimos que hay numerosas cuestiones legales también. Tania, ¿quieres que pare de hablar?
No, le cuento, hay resumidas cuentas.
Okay.
Algo resumido le cuento.
En Brasil, soy de Brasil, solo se permite la subrogación intrafamiliar. Entrevistamos a 2 mujeres que habían gestado a sus sobrinas y una de ellas dijo que sentía que su vientre era un contenedor. Entonces, hay muchas formas de comprender la situación. Una diferencia importante con la gestación subrogada es que la continuidad, una diferencia importante con la gestación subrogada que no es intrafamiliar, es que la continuidad de la relación entre el bebé y los adultos no se da necesariamente. Puede ser una opción diferente del caso de Brasil. Estamos aquí para escuchar Chloe Osborne, del Reino Unido, Casey Bojorquez, ¿sí? Sunshine Hanson, de los Estados Unidos, y Julia Caranco, que escuchamos también por la mañana. Gracias, muchas gracias por venir y por tomarse el tiempo de compartir sus historias con nosotros. Tengo algunas cuestiones para empezar, entonces voy haciendo las cuestiones y vamos teniendo respuestas. ¿Sí? Bueno, primero pediría que para decir quién son, dónde viven, cómo es su familia, si trabajas, qué es el trabajo. Sé que hoy por la mañana ya escuchamos un poco Julia, pero ¿empiezo?
Sure. So my name's Chloe. I live in the south coast of the UK. I'm 34. I work with disabled adults, and but I also homeschool my 3 children, so that's a fun balancing act. I've been through 3 surrogate journeys. I've had 1 boy that's nearly 7, and then siblings that are nearly 5 and nearly 3.
My name is Casey Bojorquez, and I am a mom of 4 girls. I have a 17-year-old, a 15-year-old, and then I convinced my husband to have 2 more, so we have a 3-year-old and a 1-year-old. I'm a 2-time surrogate. My first journey was 13 years ago, and then, like many women in the United States, I went on to do a second journey. I have a bachelor's in criminal justice, and currently I own a company with my 3 partners, Sunshine and Kyle, advocating for surrogacy and educating women about the process of surrogacy.
I'm Sunshine Hansen. I'm a 3-time surrogate. I'm also a mom of 1 24-year-old child that I carried, and then I carried twins for 2 dads that live in Australia, And I went on to carry for another family in the United States, their son and their daughter, who are now 2 and 4. And I used to be a high school English teacher, and after my first experience with surrogacy, I fell in love with the process and the beautiful journey of surrogacy, and helping women learn about the process and making sure that they're advocated for, because even though there is legislation in the United States, there's not a lot of education for women about surrogacy. So we started our organization together, and now we help women learn about surrogacy, and I'm the president of that organization. I'm 41 years old. And I'm from California originally.
31, Украина, Киев. Детям 13 и 7. И сейчас работаю в кафе.
Me llamo Julia, vivo en Ucrania, en Kiev. Do I have to talk in English? No, Spanish. Tengo 2 hijos, dos chicos, 13 y 7 años, y ahora mismo trabajo en una cafetería en Kiev.
¿Y cómo se le ocurrió la idea de la gestación subrogada? Si han tenido que negociar con sus familias, con su marido, su esposa, con los hijos. Y también, ¿cómo es la familia para la que ha gestado? Las familias.
Sure. So I had my first daughter at 23. Me and my husband had been trying not for all that long, maybe about a year. And when she was born, you have that rush, that wonderful, beautiful love, and it was amazing. But there was just a small part of my heart that broke. I knew that there were people out there that would never have what I have. And I immediately said to my husband, literally in the delivery room, we hadn't even left the hospital, I need to do something. I had, this moment just changed for me. And I was like, I really need to do something. And he said, look, it's like the baby's like a few hours old. Let's just give it 5 and we will come back to it. And we spoke about it for weeks. And I said, I don't know if I like the anonymous aspect of egg donation. I said, I don't really feel like that's for me. And surrogacy came up in conversation, and he was 100% behind me from the get-go. He was like, do you know what? This sounds amazing. This sounds great. So that's when my research started. We Googled, we looked, we opened websites, we spoke to as many people as we could, we reached out to many places, and the consensus of the advice was always kind of, if there's a possibility you may want more children, maybe you should consider finishing your family before helping someone else. So we decided to have one more, and we had twins. So once they were sort of approaching 1, we started our process. So we decided that what was important for us was the relationship. We knew that a lot of a lot of the UK's surrogacy was all done in trust and in faith in each other. So we knew that was something that was really important to us. We found an organisation that kind of had the same outlook and the same ethos and what was important to us. And we joined, we did all the checks we needed to do, we ticked all the boxes, and we started looking for the right fit. And that's when we found Deanne and John. They were a heterosexual couple that lived about an hour and a half away from my home, which was amazing that they were so close. We then spent quite a few months getting to know each other. I think sort of maybe between 4 and 5 months. I often refer to it as a bit like dating. We went out lots, like dating. We did family trips, we did trips to the zoo, trips to the park, we did takeaways, we did dinners at home, dinners out, and we just spent a lot of time kind of in each other's pockets and having, like I say, it's like dating. We then went through all the important questions, which the organisation helped provide. So they provided me with kind of a guidance that we did with somebody that was experienced, that had done it all before. And we went through the tick box exercise. We did do we agree on abortion? Do we agree on when or how and if? And we went through all of those. We went through my expenses, how much that would cost, if that was in line with the IP's budget. And we went through all of those things, and then the trying to conceive happened. We were so fortunate that we were really lucky. We fell pregnant first time. And yeah, so my children were quite young. They were 2 and 4. Well, the twins were 2, and then my eldest was 4. And I think children are quite black and white. Things are very simple. And we said to the children, obviously my eldest understood a little bit more than the younger ones did, that it was quite simple. Deanne's tummy didn't work properly, so they were borrowing mummies. And when we were done, their baby would go home. And my children had never considered the child anything more than our friend's baby. And there was no negotiation with them. They accepted that as fact, and because it was, but they accepted that as fact, and that was it. I did have some resistance from my mum. My mum is also a midwife. So from a medical aspect, she queried and worried about my health. She obviously sees labour and delivery and pregnancy go wrong. She knew the risks that I was taking, but she also knew that I was persistent and that I was stubborn and that I would do it anyway. So she very quickly was on board. And a very similar process happened with the couple that I then went on to have 2 babies. The same process. We spent lots of time together. We did the same documentation. Nothing is legally binding with that documentation, but it does give us an opportunity to talk and make those decisions prior, so we know if and when we came across any bumps in the road, that we already had an answer laid out for that potential problem.
So my journey started because I was, after my second, I had a friend who struggled with fertility, and she kind of shared with me that she had some miscarriages that she kept really private. It was something that she didn't want to share it with anybody. So when she had shared this, I couldn't imagine my life without my girls. My 2 kids at the time were my entire world, and being a mom has been my greatest joy and something I'm really proud of. And so when she shared her vulnerability of that loss, I said, I have to do something. And I had a friend who kind of told me about surrogacy, and my ears perked up. I want to know more. I need to understand this process. So I went into this deciding I'm going to do surrogacy. I want to help a family. So I was a gestational surrogate. When I started the process, in the US, there's a lot of agencies, and then there's the option of going independently. So in that, I decided that I needed to do as much research as I possibly could to understand that process. So I started to look at some of the agencies, and when I found the agency that I was confident with, that they were going to take care of me and protect me, there's a lot of pre-screening that goes into the process of becoming a surrogate. So you might decide you want to do it, but if it's not healthy for you to do it, they're not going to allow you to do it, because they want to make sure you as a mom, first and foremost, priority number 1 is you're healthy and safe through this process. So they verify and collect all your prenatal and your delivery records to make sure that it's safe. They want to make sure that you met with a psychologist to do a psychological screening to make sure that you psychologically understand what you're entering into. They want to do a background, a home visit. They want to fully understand the person that's entering into this process understands what they're doing and that they want to do this. They're entering into that. And of course, for me, I was eager to help a family. So I put together a profile that asked me a lot of questions. Was I willing to carry 2 embryos, or did I just want to carry 1 embryo? In the United States, a lot of IVF doctors actually have come to the conclusion that 1 embryo is the best route to go. There are some clinics that will allow a double embryo transfer, but in most cases they want just 1 embryo to be transferred. So for me, that was a question that I had to kind of come to that conclusion. Am I comfortable with transferring 2 embryos with the understanding that it could take both of them or one of them split? Or was I wanting 1 embryo? So I put my profile together of what I was looking for in that match and was presented a profile of intended parents who were amazing and instantly similar to it. I call it like dating a little bit. You're getting to know them. You're understanding what is it that they're looking for in this journey. What kind of relationship do they want during the journey, after the journey, during delivery? And my heart ached for them. So I decided that this was the family I was going to help. And we went on to have a contract drawn up, and I had the most amazing experience. And like many of us do in the United States, I went on to have a second journey a few years later. But I have a relationship with both of the intended parents. My first couple was domestic in the United States, and then my second couple was from Moscow, Russia, because in Russia it's not legal there. So for me, I was able to be vulnerable and allow this opportunity to help a family in different ways.
What about your husband?
So my husband, so in the United States, they want to make sure that your spouse is supportive of this process. And why that is because if he's not supportive, when you're entering into this as a married person, they require the spouse to be on that legal contract as well. So they can't allow, if I decide I want to do surrogacy as a married woman, if he's not supportive, I can't do surrogacy. So it truly is a joint effort, making sure that everybody understands that process. And I agree that that needs to be the case, because you don't want to get through this and then have your spouse or partner say, no, this is not something I'm comfortable with. We want to make sure everybody is comfortable. So at first he wasn't, but mostly because he didn't understand the process. So it took a little convincing. And I was a gestational surrogate, so for him it's like, are you giving your baby away? And I said, no, this is a gestational surrogate. I'm going to be the carrier, but this baby is biologically not mine. And then at that point he was on board. I don't know, did I miss anything? No. Okay. No.
I know, I can't remember what the original question was, but I was introduced to surrogacy through a friend who had carried, and I thought she was really just kind of one of these unique people that wants to help other people, and that's just not me. I'm a much more pragmatic person, and I'm thinking about, does this make sense? I'm very logical in making decisions. And so I watched her go through her journey, and I thought, that's really sweet for her, neat. And then I watched her relationship unfold with her intended parents, and they had a closeness and a bond. And I thought that was really beautiful. And then additionally, she went on to buy her first home after that, which was what got my attention, because I was working as a high school English teacher. It's not a very highly paid job in the United States, teaching. It's actually very undervalued. My husband was working a lot, and we had a goal to buy a home. And I thought the compensation from surrogacy would allow me to level up my family in a way that I didn't have another opportunity. I didn't have extra time to take on a second job or do other things. So I thought this would be a really beautiful thing that I could do. And also I could have that financial reward through the compensation for surrogacy. So I got this idea, and I get lots of ideas, like adopting all of the dogs and cats that I can get my hands on. My husband immediately shot it down. And so I had to work on him. And what we ended up doing was we talked to our friends. He talked to her husband and asked all of his questions. What about this? What about that? How do you feel? And got all of his fears resolved before he said, okay, fine, I don't feel awesome about this, but I trust you, and I want to let you go ahead and do this. And so I did. I went through an agency that my friend had gone through that she referred me to. I didn't really do as much research as I should have done. I didn't have the support that I would have liked to have had through the agency that I went with. But I did have an amazing experience. My intended parents, when I saw their profile, they were 2 dads from Melbourne, Australia. And one of the things that really attracted me to their profile was they had done holiday photos with their dogs in sweaters. And I was like, oh, I love them. I love them. They love their dogs as much as I love my dogs. So they're going to be great dads, and they can put sweaters on the children instead of the dogs, and it'll be really cute. So we met them, and my family, prior to meeting Gav and Joe, my intended parents, we didn't have a lot of relationships with people that were same-sex relationships. So we had been kind of more in a religious conservative background. But my only child at the time had recently come out, and I wanted to be supportive and demonstrate that support. So when I chose the couple that I wanted to help a same-sex couple to show that support to my child. So that contributed to that decision, and we met them and we fell in love with them. And my heart, I feel like I went into it because it was a pragmatic decision that I need to get a down payment to buy a home, and this is the thing. But I really fell in love with this couple, and the day that the twins were born was, to this day, even though I went on to have 2 more journeys after that, it was the most expansive experience for my heart. Like, I just, we all cried. I cried. My husband was crying. The dads were crying. The nurses were crying. Everybody was crying in the delivery room.
The baby was crying.
The babies were crying, which is all you want to hear, right? So I carried twins, which was a little bit nerve-wracking. I did agree to do a double embryo transfer because the dads both fertilized eggs from the donor, and so they each wanted to contribute. We were very lucky. Our first transfer, both of the embryos took. Fortunately, neither of them split, but I did deliver early. I had bed rest. I had complications. Carrying multiple pregnancies is higher risk. But I loved it. And the boys are now 7, and they are getting awards in school, and I still, am in contact with the dads, although they're far away from me. We stay in contact through Facebook and WhatsApp, and I want to go see them soon. And then after that, I was just like, I have to do this again. This is beautiful. This is an amazing experience. So the second couple that we helped, the mother, she's my same age. She had struggled with infertility. She had her daughter, and she almost died during childbirth. Her daughter almost died. She had a very rare condition. She was in a coma for 8 days when she delivered, so she didn't even get to see her daughter until days after she was born, and they took her uterus, and she was devastated. She wanted to have a big family. She also used to be a high school English teacher, and so I felt really connected to her when I read her story, and when we met them, we knew that they were the next couple that we wanted to help. And so I went on to carry her son. So she had already a daughter. I carried her son, and then I was going to be done. That was it. And I was done. I said, I'm not doing this anymore. But then she wanted to have another baby, and she found another surrogate, and she felt we had to have negotiate a lot of issues when we first matched, because she had a lot of unresolved trauma from her delivery and stuff that kind of arose after I became pregnant. She became very controlling, and because she was afraid. And we had to work through that, and it was hard, but we got there. And so when she was going to do this again with another surrogate, she started to get scared that she couldn't trust this person. And so she asked me if I would do it again, and I was like, okay, fine. So I did, and then I was 39. I had my 3rd C-section, so now I'm really, really done. I'm not doing this anymore. But I still love surrogacy, and I love helping other women go through this journey. And the compensation that I received for surrogacy changed my life in so many ways. There are so many things that I was able to do that I would not have been able to do for my family. And so it was really such a win-win for all of us, for the parents and for me. Yeah, I don't know if that answers the question. I hope so.
Ты можешь рассказать, как ты узнала о суррогатном материнстве и почему пошла в суррогатное материнство и кому помогали, откуда были семьи?
Вообще о суррогатном материнстве в Украине везде есть информация. Интернет, транспорт, газетах, то есть много где можно увидеть эту информацию.
En general en Ucrania hay muchísima información sobre gestación subrogada por Ucrania, o sea, vas en transporte público, hay publicidad, como en plan, las agencias buscan gestantes. Pues hay pues carteles, tal, pues en los grupos de Facebook saltan las publicidades, o sea, hay muchísima información de gestación subrogada para atraer pues la atención de las chicas y llaman y preguntamos.
Задумалась вообще стать суррогатной мамой, когда уже стала сама мамой дважды. Когда родила второго ребенка, ему было около 2 лет, я поняла, что очень хочется кому-то помочь стать родителями. Ты испытала эти ощущения, ты знаешь, каково это быть мамой, а кто-то не может, и это единственный у них вариант быть счастливыми.
Y cuando ya he tenido mis dos hijos, dos chicos, pues el menor, mi hijo menor que tenía a lo mejor ya 2 años, y entonces yo pensé, pues como estoy de una persona como realizada, me siento tan feliz con mis hijos y me gustaría ayudar a alguien más. No sé, me parecía una idea muy bonita de hacer a alguien feliz y ayudar a alguien.
Мои родные, близкие, друзья с моего окружения, они поддерживают суррогатное материнство, и они были только за, если у меня все получится.
Toda la gente a mi alrededor, los amigos, pues mis familiares, pues marido, siempre me han apoyado. Nadie me ha hecho ninguna crítica o algún comentario que no lo hagas. La verdad es que he tenido suerte que me han apoyado.
Мой первый опыт был, это для семьи с Китая, было 2 девочки.
Mi primer proceso de gestación subrogada ha sido en 2018 con una familia de China y ha sido una gestación de dos niñas.
А второй опыт, это 1 ребеночек, и это Испания.
Y la segunda gestación ha sido con una familia española que nació el año pasado, de un niño, de un chico. И отношения твои с семьей в первом случае?
В первом случае общения, отношений никаких абсолютно. Во втором случае, вот, до сих пор общаемся.
Que en primer proceso no he tenido ningún contacto porque bueno, me lo impedía la agencia y entonces 0 contacto. Y con el segundo proceso, con la familia española que está aquí en las primeras sillas sentados, pues hasta ahora seguimos manteniendo el contacto y hablando, y chateando y mandando fotos y está muy feliz. Yeah.
Una otra pregunta era un poco eso que vimos de Julia ahora. Y las 3 otras también hablaron ya un poco, que era cómo es la relación con esta familia, cómo se mantiene, tal vez decir también cómo, si saben cómo los padres, las madres de los niños presentan a ustedes, si es como una gestante, si es con una madre de subrogación, cuáles son los términos que utilizan para explicar o para nominar sus posiciones.
So I still see all of the children and all of the families that are connected to those children. So I still see the first little boy, his name's Edison. I still see him, still see his parents. I still see his grandparents. In fact, I probably see his grandparents more than I see him and his parents, because his grandparents live down the road from me. So actually we quite often bump into each other, and we pass pleasantries. We see each other a few times a year as a minimum. But I have her on Facebook, on WhatsApp, we chat all the time. And then Tim and David, who I had the second and third for, Finn and Freya are nearly 5 and nearly 3, and I can't get rid of them. They bought a holiday home where we live. I live in a lovely part of the country. It's all white sandy beaches. So they bought a holiday home. They speak to my husband more than they speak to me. Their children, all of the children get on really well. We try and do one big day a year where we all get together. That's chaos. And I think the surrogate children have all know that they grew in my belly. Obviously, they know age-appropriate information. Edison went through a phase of telling everybody, that he didn't grow in Mummy's tummy, he grew in Chloe's tummy, and I am nothing more than Mummy and Daddy's friend. The same with Tim and David, I am just Daddy's friends. They all knew that they grew there. They all blame their love for pickles on me. And my children see them nothing more as our friends' children. We all have a really good relationship. Like I say, I can't get rid of Tim and David. I'm sure they spend more time at my house than I do. And we all get on really, really well, and we still have a wonderful relationship. Obviously, when the children start going to school, it gets harder to find the time, but we still see each other lots, and they go and spare if anyone wants them.
When I entered into the process, one of the questions that they asked on the profile is, what kind of relationship do you want during and after? And I really didn't have any expectation of if I needed a relationship. I just knew that I was set on helping a family. And I knew that if it was going to happen, it would happen organically. The family that I helped for the first journey, they lived in just the state over, so a few-hour drive to come to some of the appointments. And they ended up coming to most of those appointments, and it was really a beautiful opportunity for us to build on that relationship and friendship. I knew that they were intending to share that Gavin is the surrogate baby that I carried, that he was through surrogacy, so I knew kind of the intent behind what their expectation after delivery would be. And so even after delivery, we spent a lot of time together, and we do holidays too, usually once a year. My kids really, it's kind of black and white. I told them the similar thing. Mom, they weren't able to carry, and I was able to, and I was happy to do that. And that's how they saw it. So they see him as Gavin, and I am the friend who helped carry for them. Now my second journey, because surrogacy there in Russia is not something that you are really allowed to talk about, I knew entering into that process that she wanted a relationship, the intended mom, with me during the journey, and that she intended to stay in touch and send me picture updates every once in a while. Although I didn't require it, I said, this is your child, I want you to do whatever you feel is comfortable for you. But she was not intending on sharing that information with the boy, Daniel. So Daniel doesn't know he was through surrogacy, and I went into that process completely fine with that, again, because this is their child, and I want them to have that right to make that decision. So I see pictures of him. He's 9, and he's beautiful, but he may not ever know that he was through surrogacy, and that was a decision that I was comfortable with because I couldn't imagine that right being taken away from me. So for me, as a parent, I could respect that they wanted to go that route.
One of the fears that my husband had entering into this was that we had a good life, everything was fine, and he was afraid that this would disrupt our life. So he wanted, in our match, his expectation was, you can do this, but I don't really want to be involved so much. I'm like supportive, but I don't want to be super involved. And so I didn't have the expectation of building a relationship with the family so much. And they knew that. They knew that my intention was, I'm going to help you, I'm going to carry your children, and then we're not necessarily going to stay, friends. There's no expectation that beyond this it will continue. But what ended up happening, of course, was we spent a lot of time with them, and we did become friends, and my husband loves them, and they told their kids about me. They call me Auntie. They call me Auntie Sunshine, and because they live in Australia and we live in the U.S., it's very far apart, we don't get to see them as often as we would like. We meant to go to Australia and visit them, then COVID hit, and now we have to figure that out and get that back on the plans. But we did get to meet up with them one more time when they were about 2 years old. They came to Hawaii, and we met up and spent 10 days together with the twins when they were about 2 years old, and it was so cool to see them, and for my husband and I, and to see them and see how happy they are. And it was really fun because I remember when they were born, their dads were so lost, like deer in the headlights, panicked, like, what do we do with these babies? And I remember watching them like change diapers and how they would go through like a mountain of wipes. And I was like, oh my gosh, you fold it and you go, you know, like, but I'll let them figure it out. But then when we saw them again in Hawaii, they were pros. Like they had it down. They were like taking the boys into the ladies' room to change their diaper because that's where the changing table is. And they're like, sorry, ladies, I'm not interested in you. I just want to change my kid's diaper. And so I love seeing the updates. We have actually a Facebook shared little Facebook group where they weekly post pictures of the boys. We're on week 379, which is hilarious that they're still every week they post the pictures and the boys are like, they're so cute. And then my second family that I cared for, she's such a busy mom, and I'm a busy mom. Like, our lives are so busy, but we always have so much love and respect for one another, and we do stay in touch on Facebook. Whenever, if she ever reaches out to me just to see how we're doing, it's just, there's no expectation of that. Both of these families, they didn't come to surrogacy because they wanted to build a relationship with an outsider. They came to surrogacy because they needed help to have their children. And I don't have any expectation that they owe me anything. They don't owe me communication. They don't owe me updates. I'm grateful that they share them with me. And I love to see them because I'm so proud. I'm so proud of what I've done for these families. But they're living their own lives, and we're living our own lives, and this was a magical thing that we did together, and now we're going our separate ways mostly, but we do stay in touch a little bit.
С первыми родителями я не знаю, будут девочки знать, не будут знать правду, как они родились. В втором случае мы...
El primer programa ha sido con la familia de China y como no hemos tenido contacto, pues por supuesto no sé ni cómo, si en algún momento han contado a las niñas si han nacido por gestación subrogada o no, entonces nunca lo sabré. Y con el segundo proceso con la familia española.
Аксель и Лаура считают меня, моих деток, частью, членами своей семьи.
Pues aquí Axel y Laura me reciben a mis hijos, a mi familia, como parte de su familia. Somos como pues eso, una gran familia y pues como siblings, ¿no? De parientes, como que somos como una gran familia.
Мы виделись в роддоме, я держала маленького. Уже перед их отъездом я также держала малыша, мальчики нянчили.
En la maternidad estábamos visitándonos unos a otros, de habitación a habitación, le sujetaba al niño, les visitaba, les seguía sujetando mientras estaban en Kiev. Pues también les iba visitando, me visitaban, o sea, paseábamos juntos, le tenía también en mis brazos a Miquel, al niño, y bueno, y hoy mismo pues están aquí también, seguimos hablando, seguimos esa bonita relación y pues hemos pasado ahora mismo todo el día juntos, ahí paseando.
Я с моими детками называю Микелюшку сладкая булочка.
Ajá, que dice a Miquel, al niño, que bueno, tiene 13 meses, que dice que con sus hijos lo llaman así, con cariño, le llaman como mi dulce bollito, que nuestro dulce bollito, le llaman dulce bollito, nos encanta y le queremos mucho.
Просто это в действительности замечательная пара, замечательные родители, и видя, с каким трепетом они к этому пупсику, ты понимаешь, да, я правильно поступила, и малыш очень любимый и залюбленный pupsitик.
Y que dice que bueno, que es que cuando ves esa familia, lo ves con tus propios ojos, cómo le quieren, cómo le cuidan, o sea, lo feliz que están, pues claro, te llena de felicidad y estás feliz por ese bebé, o sea, estás feliz y o sea, llena de felicidad y dices, jo, qué bien que lo he hecho, qué bien que lo he hecho.
Это просто непередаваемые эмоции видеть родителей, которые в такой обстановке приехали и впервые увидели, взяли своего маленького на руки. Первые 3 дня они не верили в то, что в действительности это произошло.
Que dice es un sentimiento pues indescriptible de cuando vinieron y le cogieron en brazos la primera vez y llevaban ahí 3 días, es que se les veía que no lo creían, o sea, como que no lo creían, que no era real para ellos. Entonces verles pues te emociona y es difícil de contarlo con palabras, realmente ese sentimiento de verles.
why the tissues are here. Now I understand.
Sí. Bueno, hablemos un poco más del tema de la mesa, entre el altruismo y el trabajo. Después de hablar de ello durante 3 días, nos dimos cuenta de que el altruismo y el trabajo no se excluyen mutuamente. Entonces, ¿cómo entiendes su embarazo pensando en estos 2 términos? Trabajo, altruismo, los dos. ¿Cómo entienden altruismo? ¿Cómo entienden trabajo?
Sure. So for me, I think even if a compensation had been an option, I don't think I would have taken it. For me, it just didn't sit right. However, I definitely think that there's a place for it. There isn't a massive desire for it in the UK. Most surrogates that we speak to are of a similar opinion. However, I do think that when it's done right, compensation, it can why shouldn't somebody else benefit? Why shouldn't both parties benefit? However, for me, the benefit was the relationship. The benefit for me was knowing that I had taken an opportunity to change someone's life forever, and for me that was enough. And I know that even when the compensation is included, having spoken to everybody, that that the money doesn't override that desire. But for me, it just wasn't necessary. It wasn't something that I felt like I needed. It wasn't. I don't feel kind of resentment for the fact I don't have it and everyone else kind of up here has. I don't feel like I've missed out on an opportunity, because I think if it was on the table, it isn't something that I would have taken. However, money does change hands in the UK. I still have all my expenses paid. It isn't something, I don't go out of pocket. My things are still covered. We still have a recuperation break at the end of the journey when the baby is born, for an opportunity for me and my family to come back together, to kind of recover, more of from an emotional point of view than a physical one. But yes, an opportunity, and for things like my mum and my gran, who looked after my children whilst I looked after somebody else's. And so we took them with us. We treated them to that recuperation break. And for me, that was enough. And I don't, but again, I don't resent anyone else taking what's available to them. And I think when done right, it really, really works.
In the U.S., compensation is really up to the surrogate, and it is something that you usually enter into with a benefit package. But if a surrogate were to come and say, I'm going to do this for a friend, or I decided I'm not going to be compensated, she'll have her cost covered. But one of the things that agencies do is they want to verify that you're entering into this financially stable, so that you're not being coerced to do this. You're not doing this because you feel you financially need it. I entered into surrogacy because I couldn't imagine my life without my girls. My kids are my entire world. So that for me was my first and foremost thing. I didn't anticipate the amount of impact the financial piece would have on my family, because I was going to school and trying to graduate with my degree. I was trying to level up my family in that way. And so for myself, I was able to accomplish both. I was able to help this family who I love and adore to this day, but I was also able to help my own family. And there are a lot that goes into this. When I'm a surrogate, I might not have the opportunity to advance in my career because I'm taking that time off. When I'm a surrogate, I might be put on bed rest. I might endure or not be able to hold might have to go pee, afterwards, right? So there's a lot that changes in this process. Your body physically is changed after having a pregnancy. So you really want, for me, it was an opportunity to have the both and being able to level up my own family in that way. And and it was beautiful. So I look at it in a way that if somebody decides they want to do this and they decide that the compensation is there, that I think it's great. And then I met women who will do it and don't receive compensation, and I think that is beautiful as well.
For me, I would, as much as I wanted to help someone, and I always would want to help someone in need. I do feel that it's a very big ask to ask someone to carry a child in their body and give birth to that child and take IVF hormone injections and miss time from work. And there's such a big impact that it's not the same as when you become pregnant on your own, when you're going through gestational surrogacy. The IVF process, it takes a toll. And so I do feel that if I was not compensated for it, I would have felt taken advantage of. I don't feel that anybody is entitled to the use of my body and time for no compensation. So I would not have done it without compensation. People that are willing to do that, I think you're a saint. I think you truly are an angel on earth. I'm not an angel. I'm not a saint. I'm a human woman. And I went through the physical impact of pregnancy and childbirth and postpartum hair loss and wore a diaper for 6 weeks after. My body is different. My hair fell out. There's a lot that you go through to carry a child. And when you're doing that for your own child, I even at this point, I don't think I would carry my own child if somebody wasn't going to pay me for it. So I feel that the compensation is very necessary. And even now, the women that I support that do sign up to become surrogates, and I educate them about this, and they say, I feel guilty. I tell them, don't feel guilty. You are entitled to be compensated for your labor. And I think as women, we are kind of coached and raised from childhood that we need to be giving and that we need to be altruistic and that we need to take care of others. And that's beautiful, and we do, but not for free. Our labor has value, and I feel that I was entitled to the compensation, and I earned it, and I'm not ashamed of it. I'm proud of it. It was not greedy, and I still gave a tremendous gift, because I know a lot of people that no matter how much you paid them, they would not put their bodies through that for somebody else. And so it still was an act of altruism, even though I was compensated. And it did change my life in so many ways, and I wouldn't have done it. The other side of that, too, is that there are a lot more intended parents who need a surrogate. And so if you're relying on running into angels like her out in the wild, there just really aren't that many. And so you might have to actually, if you want to not wait forever to run into somebody who wants to give that gift freely, you'll have a better chance of finding somebody to carry your child and help you build your family if you're willing to compensate her for that. That's my thoughts.
Я думаю, что да, таки должна быть компенсация, потому что суррогатное материнство – это очень ответственная работа.
Yo creo que sí que debe haber una compensación financiera, porque al final gestación subrogada es una cosa de mucha responsabilidad que cae en tus hombros.
Повторюсь, как предыдущая девочка говорила, во время беременности ты не можешь работать, и смотря как прошла беременность и роды, ты и после не можешь. И по сути эта компенсация перекрывает те расходы, которые у тебя возникли из-за беременности.
Como decía la compañera del centro, pues que es que claro, durante la gestación lo más seguro que no vas a trabajar, bueno, en su caso, por ejemplo, no quería trabajar durante la gestación, después de dar a luz, pues también necesitas tiempo de recuperación. Al final es que son todos ingresos que tú estás perdiendo ayudando a otra familia.
Если какая-то девочка, к примеру, решилась, или вот как вот у нас есть опыт возле нас, первая девочка, которая не взяла компенсацию, она большая молодец. Если она так решила, значит, это ее желание, и так должно было быть в ее семье.
Sí, que apoya muchísimo pues, a la primera compañera, que lo ha hecho sin compensación, pero si es lo que le decía el corazón, entonces tenía que ser así, no de otra manera. Y entonces es lo que le ha llenado y con lo que se ha sentido confortable. Y yo creo que, bueno, que lo primero es que nos sintiésemos confortables con el proceso. Y si ella estaba conforme, estaba bien, pues perfecto, bienvenida sea que no haya compensación.
Ну и вообще касательно компенсации, это должно быть вообще желание, решение каждой сурмамы в отдельности. Какая-то может подписать договор, где есть компенсация, но в конце сказать, я не хочу ее брать. То есть это желание самой сурмамы.
Dice, a lo mejor no debería haber como en plan, no, todas las gestantes deben recibir una compensación si una mujer no la quiere, o a lo mejor ha firmado y que sí que debería recibir una compensación, pero luego lo que ha sentido es no aceptarla, pues todo también, o sea, todo va a valer mientras que tú te sientas confortable.
Sorry, may I just add? I think like when you consider the options that you've used that compensation for, that's covered in my expenses. So I think that like when you consider things like, you know, like the fact that you spent 6 weeks in diapers, we all do it. There's no skirting away from it. It happens. I'm not taking that out of my bank account. That is like, you know, I'm not going for break. Although it is altruistic, they're, you know, on a bigger scale. I think those things, some of those things are, you know, that you guys are kind of potentially taking out of your compensation is given to me as standard. So like, I wonder how, when you compare kind of where you started financially to where it ended, is that compensation kind of where you, do you know what I mean? Like where you start, if you started it at a number and then you take away all those little things that you've had, is that original number now much smaller than where it started?
No.
Just from a curiosity point of view, like all those things mentioned,
No.
I also have, but mine are considered expenses,
Right.
not considered compensation.
So the expenses are in addition to, so you have your base compensation, which is the amount that you're being paid for enduring pregnancy and childbirth. But then you're also reimbursed for your lost wages, and you're reimbursed for any medical expenses and maternity clothing and things like that. So none of the expenses or those costs come out of your compensation. So you get to keep that money for whatever, you know, and then the other expenses are on top of it. So I understand that's very expensive for intended parents, and it is exclusionary for a lot of parents that can't afford to do it that way. And so I think it's really wonderful that there are women who, you know, there are so many options and for people, and for those who don't want to wait, or for those who, you know, have the means to afford a compensated surrogate. I think it's wonderful that there are so many options, because I do think it's sad that the expense of it excludes some people from parenthood through, you know, biological parenthood through surrogacy. But yeah, the compensation is not, your expenses are not reduced from it. They're in addition to it.
And is that the same for Ukraine?
Yeah, I will answer for her. So what she gets, she doesn't work during the pregnancy, but what she gets what she would get with her work will be like 20 times less and less and less what she gets from the surrogacy. So what she gets from the surrogacy is like maybe savings for 15 years of working.
Wow.
So there is a huge a hole in there. So for her, yes, at first it's a compensation, and that's why she says that she thinks that should be the compensation. But this is her choice, like to not work during the surrogacy, not because she calculate like the wage that I lost. The compensation will be recovered this or reimburse me for this wage. No, she will get a lot more. That's why in Ukraine it's usually for compensation. I will translate for her, but she like this is what she thinks for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Спрашивали у тебя, что, типа, первая девочка спрашивала, ну, разве те компенсации, которые ты получила, она же намного больше была, чем то, что 9 месяцев, допустим, не работала, ты же получила намного больше, не то, что ты там за зарплату не получила. Я говорю, что это она работала где-то за 10-15 лет сбережений, правильно? Да. Sí. Yes, it's what I said. Es lo que he dicho. But it's true that for the third surrogacy journey, after 2 first, and after meeting her Spanish family, she would repeat like for free. Like you know, it's like she's so fulfilled with the feelings that she has from the Spanish family, that now she sees like it's a very beautiful journey to help someone and to have this bonding.
Bom, more 2 little questions, dos perguntas más. Después podemos ver si otras personas quieren también hacer preguntas. Hablaba con Marta, que me decía que pensábamos si es diferente o si es lo mismo pensar en una gestación de sustitución comercial o por compensación. Si es diferente, si utilizamos el término comercial, si eso hace un poco más dura, un poco, si hay una diferencia entre hablar con compensación o comercial. Y una otra cosa es sobre el trabajo reproductivo, que es una expresión que vemos mucha discusión entre los académicos, las académicas, y también un poco en los movimientos feministas. Entonces, a ver si trabajo reproductivo, que también es una expresión que algunas veces utilizamos para las mujeres que tienen sus propios hijos, si piensan que es una expresión interesante, de qué habla esta expresión.
I guess from an altruistic point of view, I guess I don't really have an opinion because nobody would refer to what I've done as that. So I think I'll just pass it up the line.
Well, I mean, in most cases, in the US, it's compensated surrogacy. So gestational surrogacy is practiced more often. And it's rare for somebody to do surrogacy altruistically, but I don't know if they really use that term.
I feel like the word commercial does have a negative connotation. I would prefer compensated surrogacy over commercial surrogacy because commercial surrogacy, the nuance of that does kind of take away that it's not a business transaction. It is a relational experience. Even if you don't go on to have an enduring relationship with the parents, you know when you're carrying that child, you are responsible for them and you care about them and you want them to go on and have the best life. And you love people. You love the baby, you love the parents, even if they're strangers, you love them, you care about them, and you want good for them. Whereas commercial kind of just makes it seem so transactional, and it's not. It's like not that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And reproductive work sounds like sex work. I don't like it.
Я скорее бы назвала это просто суррогатное материнство за компенсацию, но никак не коммерческое, потому что со стороны это будет выглядеть как продажа ребенка, но это совсем не так.
Yo estoy de acuerdo con las compañeras que yo no me siento cómoda si se dice una gestación subrogada comercial, mejor gestación subrogada pues por compensación, que efectivamente, como dice la compañera, que parece que lo estoy vendiendo cuando hay sentimientos por el medio, pues no lo estoy vendiendo. Y un segundo, que lo de la reproducción, tú has preguntado si está bien, o sea, la palabra de reproducción asistida, ¿no? Clínicas de reproducción.
No, trabajo reproductivo.
Trabajo reproductivo.
Sí, es una expresión.
Репродуктивная работа, тебе как это термин нравится или как-то он сильно
Чем-то похоже, как и на коммерческое, если уж так вот задуматься.
Que dice que ella elegiría otra también palabra que no transmite buenos sentimientos esa palabra.
No me gusta.
No me gusta.
No, a mí tampoco.
No sé si hay otras cosas que quieren decir antes de otras preguntas que pueden llegar. ¿No? ¿Hay preguntas? ¿Sí? Sarah Jones. Mariano, Sarah Jones.
Thank you. So I just had a few little things to say. So the first one is, I think when you're talking about altruistic or compensated surrogacy, is to think about the countries that you're talking about. Because although the US and the UK are very, very similar, we've got very, very different social structures. Like the UK is not very litigious, for example. So there are very, very big differences in altruism and compensated surrogacy just because of the countries that operate them. What I would like to say is, after speaking to lots of the surrogates here, there's more similarities to us than there are differences. And the big thing for me is, even with compensated surrogacy, there is also that altruistic background to it as well. And that's really important. But the question that I have is, the one thing that I've seen over today especially is that contact with the children and the families afterwards, even if it's just by photographs. I literally watched all of your faces light up completely. So how important is that, do you think, for the pride that you feel in having undertaken a surrogacy journey, whether it's altruistic or compensated?
That's a good question.
So for me, the relationship afterwards and the pride I have in what I achieved, I think it is the reward. That is the reward for me. That was my drive. That was definitely why I did it after once, and I did it again and again. That is definitely my reward. And for me, I think, especially from an altruistic point of view, if that relationship had broken down, or if that relationship breaks down in the future, it would be devastating. It would be devastating for me, but it would also be devastating on not just from a selfish point of view. My children would be devastated. My husband would be devastated. I'd like to think the other children would be devastated that they've lost a part of their lives and they've lost a part of their story. And I think I am speaking for my IPs now, for sure, but I will. And I think that they would also feel the same way. I think if the relationship broke down from me, I think that they would feel the same. I think they would feel that they've lost a part of their story and a part of their history.
Yeah, I have the opportunity of talking with hundreds of women in what we do with surrogacy. And the one thing that I will continue to go back to is, there is so much pride that I have in being a surrogate. At the end of the day, when my life is done, I can be proud that I was a mom and that I helped somebody in such a profound way. And so for me, that joy of being a surrogate is something that I wear with a proud smile on my face, to say, yes, I was able to help somebody in that way. And going into that, it's special. It's something that, I
What
walk
if they
around.
didn't communicate with you anymore?
I would be okay with that. I love photos, but I would be okay with that because they're there still. I made that family. I helped them in that way. So even if they hadn't had a relationship, or they decided they needed this space, or they've decided they're not going to tell the second child that I helped carry, I was okay with that. But mostly because he exists, and that to me is all the joy that I really truly needed in entering into that process.
I don't even know how, because I can't imagine, I'm so grateful to see the photos and to be able, I think the photos that I still receive and the access that I have to the families when I'm telling others about my journey to help them understand, I think they wouldn't, because there are people that are like, oh, do you still have a relationship? Where if I didn't continue to have a relationship with the families, there might feel like there's a little bit of a judgment from people that, oh, it was transactional, see, like I thought. But for me, I don't require that. But it does help me when I'm sharing with people my experience and my journeys and talking about having been a surrogate, for me to be able to show them, like, these are the twins, this is, these are the kids, look at these beautiful children that I helped bring into the world. And I like being able to share that with other people, but I don't need it for myself, if that makes sense.
В первом случае, да, было бы интересно увидеть фотографии девочек, как они растут, насколько они развиваются и все ли у них хорошо. Но если родители не идут на этот контакт, это их выбор, и я его принимаю. Я вполне счастлива, то, что вот есть пара, с которыми я общаюсь, и секретов никаких. Они очень близки для меня.
En la primera gestación, efectivamente, como no hemos tenido relación, pues sí, a mí me hubiera gustado. O sea, lo ideal sería para mí pues ver fotos, cómo están creciendo, saber de ellas y tal. Pero también a la vez entiendo y respeto completamente. Si no buscan esa relación, pues lo respeto y lo entiendo. Yo sé lo que he hecho, les he hecho feliz seguramente y ya está. Y en el segundo proceso, pues claro, es como debería de ser. Tengo esa maravillosa relación con la familia y es lo que me hace feliz. Y bueno, quería seguir, que la entropía.
Это общение, особенно сейчас, в той обстановке, в которой ты находишься в Украине, когда обмениваешься фото, кто приготовил, видишь фото, видео пупсика, как они отдыхают, проводят время, это как-то тебя настолько отвлекает от того, что происходит вокруг, и это общение, я понимаю, что оно мне в действительности нужно, мне приятно это общение, я не хочу его прекращать. Я очень счастлива, что у меня есть контакт с такими людьми.
Además, en la situación que vivimos hoy en día en Ucrania, pues agradezco mucho la relación que tengo con la familia española, porque al final que chateamos muchísimo, nos mandamos muchas fotos, nos he hecho alguna receta, la mando a la madre a España, ella también cocina algo y pues me lo manda y al final, pues el día a día que vives en Ucrania, pues también me ayuda como a sobrevivir ese día a día, ¿no? Mentalmente como que sigues esa relación y te como que piensas en otra cosa, no solo en eso, ¿no? En la guerra. Y creo que sí, que debe haber esa relación porque sí, la quiero. O sea, ahora que veo lo que significa y sí que es importante tener relación.
Я даже смотрю по тому, как у нас тут происходит общение, и когда младший ребенок себя плохо чувствует, начинаем вспоминать их встречу и как они играли с Акселем в шахматы, и малыш начинает сразу же улыбаться, вспоминать, как он качал Микелешку в коляске.
En caso de Julia, que su hijo pequeño de 7 años pues está enfermo, pues tiene pues recaídas y tal, pues ella le recuerda pues cuando hablan con Laura, Axel, pues le cuenta, ¿te acuerdas cuando nació Miquel y jugabais a ajedrez y tal? Y se le cambia la cara al niño. Dice, fíjate qué tontería, pero esos recuerdos, esa conexión con ellos, como que le ayuda, le da esa extra de sentimiento de que le ayuda. Y entonces, pues, o sea, y piensas, ¿cómo va a ser ayudar a tu hijo una cosa así? Pero, mira. Pues, sí.
Laura. No. Тише.